Madam Speaker, I thank you. I rise to make a few contributions to this timely bill, which, in my view, it's really intended to reward greatness. In America, Madam Speaker, the Hall of Fame, or the Hall of Fame, is categorized in different fields, mostly in sports. It is to reward people who are legends. When I skimmed through this bill, I got a bit confused as to how you reward legendary, yet you are giving all the powers to the county government administration, the Public Service Board, and how they measure that greatness. Madam Speaker, the bill is good, but in my view, it needs to change because we're not trying to reward politics. We are trying to look at different fields, sports, business, greatness, our cultural heritage, where we need to really think about what it means to be a Hall of Famer. When I think about sports, Madam Speaker, I'm a person who enjoys basketball, the game of basketball. I think of people like Michael Jordan, who has got to retire from the game so that he can be considered to be put in the Hall of Fame, so that people can be able to aspire to be as great as that person. Madam Speaker, the draft of this bill, who is the majority leader, Kipchumba Murkomen, he has a very, very good idea. But I think he's got to change completely in his desire to be able to reward greatness by ensuring that when, for instance, in the composition of this select committee, which I think is poorly constituted, we should not have the clerk of the county assembly to be the chairperson. We should not have the county executive committee member responsible for culture and heritage as part of that and playing a key role. We should not have the chairperson of the county public service board as also a person who plays a key role. What about if we can expand a little bit on who will be considered to be nominated to be part of the Hall of Fame? In Kenya, Madam Speaker, and in different counties, we've got different talents. In Maasai Land, Madam Speaker, we've got, people like Rudisha, who is a champion in terms of the 800 meters. We've got Manangoi, who is following suit. We've got other people who came in like the Conchellas, who left history. They retired. We need to think about the people who can be able to nominate them, because they are the only ones who can come in and tell us that he was great at this sport, because this is how he was able to defeat everyone else. So that whoever wants to become a Hall of Famer can be aspiring. He or she can be able to look at what David Rudisha or Billy Conchella did when he was running the 800 meters and he broke several world records. Not someone from the Public Service Board. What will she or he know about being a Hall of Famer? Madam Speaker, I think when we try to come up with legislation, it is imperative that we ask ourselves, what is it that we are trying to reward, or what is it that we are trying to make it legendary? I would propose to the sponsor of this bill to reconstitute entirely the select committee, the ones that will be receiving nominations of people who are to be considered in the Hall of Fame. It is good for the county government to construct a hall and consider it a Hall of Fame, where they can be able to put pictures of all the great men and women of that county. But the people to select are the people in that field. If it is athletics, get someone from the Kenyan Athletic Federation who knows everything and anything about sports. If it is in business, get someone from the Chamber of Commerce to be part of that select committee, because he or she would be able to measure and say, Ledama was great, or so-and-so was great in this field because he was able to break every record that we set. Madam Speaker, the key most important is that, in terms of looking at the Hall of Fame, is that we are recognizing a special person You have to be special to be considered as a Hall of Famer. All over the world, we remember people like Nelson Mandela for the great things, the 27 years that he spent in jail. There's a book, Madam Speaker, that I'm reading on Nelson Mandela, that he used to write letters to the family. And people remember that he stood firm and he fought for something. Endurance. Not just bringing in people and saying, you know, let's have 2 public officers nominated by the Public Service Board. Madam Speaker, I would recommend that if we really want to reward greatness, because being considered a member of the Hall of Fame is not being considered as a good politician, but as someone who has been able to pass and to excel in their field, we must, the sponsor of this bill must really consider reconstituting the entire select committee so that we can be able to clearly reward greatness. Madam Speaker, when I look at the second clause, the purpose of the County Hall of Fame, 2A, it says to honor the achievements of persons who have made significant contribution to the county or the country. How do you determine this? You only determine that by measuring all those people who have been part of that field. We don't want a situation where nowadays, for you to be considered as an elder of the Golden Heart, or maybe a Moran of the Golden Heart, you go and stand behind somewhere eating githeri, and before you realize, your name has been considered and has been forwarded. That is not greatness. That is rewarding, mediocrity. And I think this country, we have seen great leaders, people who have sacrificed, people who fought for independence of this country. They persevered, but we don't reward them. It's just like our men and women in uniform, Madam Speaker, who sacrifice. They go, and by the time they leave, we forget about them. Madam Speaker, the Kenya Athletic Federation currently no longer has an interest in those people who came and did well, and any other sport, Madam Speaker, around the world. But the moment you establish that Hall of Fame, then they can actually now get to utilize the people who would be considered as Hall of Famers, because then they can be able to nurture this talent. They can go to Kajiado, Madam Speaker. They can go to Narok County, Madam Speaker, and talk to the youth. Maybe even set up academies, sports academy, to nurture that talent. If it is business, they can talk about how they excelled so that people can aspire to be like them or even greater than them. Madam Speaker, when you devalue the achievements of an individual, then the only way that you can redeem yourself is by ensuring that you reward them and you honor them and you use them. So this bill, if amended, and I would like to have a sitting with the majority leader and really maybe give him my reasons, because I've attended a lot of ceremonies where people are inducted into the Hall of Fame. And when you hear what they have done for them to be considered as that, I'm not so sure I would agree with my senior, Professor Madam Speaker, sometimes I forget names. But the senator from Kisii who just spoke, Senator Ongeri. When I say Kisii is when I'll remember the name. I don't really agree with him that we should reward people who are tailors. Because when we think about it, this is a talent that we've acquired over time, but we still haven't mastered it. There are people who, over time, in years, from Italy, from other countries, who have mastered the art of tailor. They become master tailors. It is true that in Kenya, most people would go to a tailor and get a suit. But for you to be considered as having worn a proper suit, you must know that where that fabric comes from, the weight of that fabric. Some of those things I'm not so sure that our tailors in Kenya really take the time to be able to determine. So long as it's a fabric, higher. let us...
Yes, Senator Mora.
Madam Speaker, pursuant to many standing orders, is it in order for Senator Ledama Olekina to trivialize the contribution of Senator Ongeri when he was actually referring to local knowledge rather than, you know, the mere act of a sewing machine? I thought he was trying to allude to local knowledge and the knowledge of our people in terms of contributing to our own science. And he went ahead and gave many examples, including how to remove a hematoma. Is it in order?
Senator Ledama, you might wish to clarify whether you're trying to demean what the Honorable Senator had been able to converse in terms of the skills that we have in this country.
Madam Speaker, if there's one senator that I greatly admire and respect as my elder, as my mentor, is none other than Senator Sam Ongeri. Madam Speaker, all I was trying to say is very clear. You know, in this world nowadays, people can actually utter certain words and they can mean something totally different. A good example, Madam Speaker. The President of this Republic of Kenya today made some statement that left everyone in stitches and said that his wife, brother's mother come from Jamaica. So we're all left and wondering, who are these wife, brother's mother? Is it mother-in-law, or is it that the first lady come from a polygamous family? Sometimes it depends on how you really understand what is uttered. What I meant is that when we reward, Madam Speaker, when we consider celebrating talent, then we have to be able to have a way of measuring it. The example that I gave on a suit is that when you wear a suit, Madam Speaker, made by a master tailor, that tailor will tell you that fabric weighs so much, that fabric comes from a particular type of cotton, and you'll be able to completely, you know, break it down for you, what it took to be able to come and develop that and make that suit, such that when you're walking in the street, even if it rains, the suit is not spoiled. Maybe the water will just touch it and go down. That is rewarding proper talent. We cannot equate that, Madam Speaker, with someone like me who learns how to use a sewing machine, and then I say, I've used it for 20 years, now I must be put into the Hall of Fame. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I fully support the bill, but with proper amendments. Let us not just come up with legislation to create room for people to just say, okay, I'm going to pay so much to this public service board member. For that, I can be included in that Hall of Fame. We must do an audit of the skills that we think ought to be celebrated. You know, we must look at the talents that we believe, Madam Speaker, that they ought to be celebrated. In this country, we've got young men and women who spend most of their time in the mountains preparing, and they are only remembered and celebrated, Madam Speaker, during World Championships. But if you meet them in the street here, you will never be able even to recognize who he or she is. Young men and women who break athletics world records. And I think, Madam Speaker, because we are a country of many talents, but we've only excelled in certain fields. Athletics is one of them. I think the sponsor of this bill should consider setting up different Hall of Fames in different counties, but just having a blanket legislation that now compels county government to set up Hall of Fame, it will be room for abuse. We have to figure out what is it that we have in Marsabit. Maybe in Marsabit, Madam Speaker, we have men and women who have been able to, develop that economy despite the challenges which are there. Maybe we have pastoralists who have been able to keep a lot of cows and ensure that they protect those cows, during the drought season, and they help build that economy. That is the kind of thing that we ought to reward and to celebrate them. Not just saying, county government, set up, bring the clerk of the assembly. Madam Speaker, in other cases, maybe the clerk of that assembly is not even someone from that county. What will that clerk know about that county, about the talent that is there? These jobs, Madam Speaker, if you really want to be able to have continuity in them, you need to have the local peoples. So the first thing, Madam Speaker, is that I would hope that the sponsor of this bill will look at the Hansard and amend the composition of the select committee. Go around, put in elders who have been there. If it is culture, Madam Speaker, nowadays, if you want to be able to sell anything in this world, not even in this country, you just take a Masai shuka and you put it there and you go there and you say you're a Masai elder. I mean, these are facts, Madam Speaker. And so, for us to avoid that, and maybe you now come and reward Senator Mwaura for having worn a shuka and sold a lot of the Masai artifacts, and you now say he should be in the Hall of Fame for creating more business. Yet he doesn't even understand what Engerina is. So we really need to consider, rewarding creativity and also people who have excelled in their field, not opening it up for political rewards. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the Hall of Fame should be made for special persons, and very few people in this country can be considered as special and worth being named as a legend. I thank you, Madam Speaker.